You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yep.
Jesse Collins.
You may not know who he is, but I guarantee you've seen something that he's done.
Executive producer of the New Edition story.
Tell him some other stuff you've been involved
The Bobby
in, Jesse.
Brown story that's coming up. What else?
Let's see, New Edition story, Bobby Brown story, Real Husbands of Hollywood, every BET Awards, BET Hip Hop Awards, BET Honors, done the Grammys for the past 10 years. Did voiceover in BAPS. That was probably like the pinnacle.
The voiceover
my,
in BAPS?
that was probably the pinnacle of my
Wow.
career. I've never really been able to get past that. That was my thriller. That was really my thriller.
Nothing impressed me that you said until you said that. I'm be honest.
You're impressed about the BAPS.
Grammys,
That was a highlight.
voiceover in BAPS.
That
It was
was
amazing.
BAPS, and it was a scene with Halle Berry. So
me
it was
hear-
kind of
let's
like
hear
we
it.
did a scene together.
You know I use that term all the time. I got 2 daughters, man. So I'll be like beautiful African princesses, and I'll be like BAPS. I use that term all the time.
Really?
Yes.
See, look at that.
Yes.
Influence on the culture.
Yeah,
you didn't know.
Now, let's talk about the New Edition story. Let's talk, why did you want to do the New Edition story?
So it started at an award show. We were doing BET's 20th anniversary. And I had worked with them over the years, but that was a chance to reunite all of them. And it was one of those things where I had everybody but Ralph. And then Ralph didn't come to any rehearsals.
Damn.
And Bobby was like, fuck it, I'll do Ralph's part, which wasn't going to work.
Nah.
And then and we kept sending cars for Ralph, and then it just wasn't working
Sending
out.
cars.
Cars.
So he just leave the car outside.
Car be outside.
Damn it, man.
And then Ralph walked in. Ralph walked in, day of show, one rehearsal, bodied it.
Really?
And that, like, the night after that, or the morning after that show, I called Bivens at 5 a.m. I was like, y'all are the most functional, dysfunctional people I've ever met in my life. You got to let me tell you a story. You need to do this movie. People need to see how that family works. And it took a long time, but
How long did it take for everybody to sign off? And who was the last person to sign off? Was it
Bob
Ralph?
was the last one to sign
was.
up. Bob was the last one. So we started. It was a 10-year process.
Really?
So we got a deal at BET and Paramount. It was originally supposed to be a feature, and so we got 5 signatures, and then Bob wasn't signing.
Yeah.
And it was like me and Brooke Payne and Ricky Bell, like in a club with the contract, trying to get Bob to sign. I mean,
Like a subpoena.
Yeah, exactly. Which he probably thought it was.
Were y'all applying them with drugs and alcohol?
We was just pressing him like,
Okay.
Bob, you got to do this. And, he wasn't in that space. He wanted all this money, all of that. We couldn't get it done. And then, and it's funny, Bivens always wanted it to be a miniseries. So jump to 10 years later,
Wow.
TLC hit. And we, and Dion Harmon, who's one of our creative execs,
What up, Dion?
she says, TLC just hit. You should try to revive the New Edition story. So I called Stephen Hill, and I was like, you actually own this at Paramount. And TLC just did well. We should try it again. And then we still had everybody's signatures, and then Bobby was holding out. And it was crazy because then our thing to Bobby was, you can either tell your story your way, or you can let those guys
Tell your story.
tell your story. And that was starting to work, and that was starting to press him. And then right before he was supposed to sign is when Bobby Christina went into a coma. So then we backed off and waited until that situation worked itself through. And really when that happened, Bob's perspective seemed to change. And we closed it, and we went straight into production.
Wow.
Why do you think it was so successful?
I think New Edition was so successful, one, because nobody knew the stories. They came up pre-social media. So nobody understood the dynamics of that group, the problems that they had and to some extent still have.
Right.
We just
I
had
saw
the
Johnny.
we had Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike up here last week.
And
Right,
Johnny
right.
Gill just put up a post
I saw
about that. Yeah.
What'd he say?
About the whole
You know, Johnny and Ralph own the name.
Right.
Yeah. So he said it's a personal issue between Ralph and everybody else.
Right. It's always, they're brothers. They're brothers, and there's always going to be something going on. But I think because there was so much new information, and I think there are Rolling Stones. They're so important as a group to the culture. They're actually, in some ways, I think, for us, bigger than the Rolling Stones because,
I can't name one Rolling Stone record.
Exactly.
And don't care to.
No individuals.
Stop
Jaggers
me
put
up,
out
stop me up.
records.
Mick Jagger,
Keith Richards
Mick
put out
Jagger.
records. It didn't work. But New Edition is able to break off. Ralph, Johnny, BBD, Bobby. They're just something that the music business has never seen before. And I think you put all those things together, and that's what made it hit.
Do you think
They
it was
feel-
be that big for the culture? I mean, because you opened up eyes from young kids, millennials to 7-year-olds to older people who knew they were. I never expected it to be that big.
We didn't know it was going to be as big as it is. We knew that we couldn't fuck it up. Me and Chris Robinson were just constantly like, we will get kicked out of black culture forever if we fuck up New Edition's story. And that was always what we got everywhere we went. People would come up to us and like, you got to tell it. You got to let us know and don't fuck up and make sure them dance steps are right.
Right.
And make sure Ralph is cute and make sure this and da-da-da and all that shit. And so we push and we push and we push.
I wasn't worried about the story. I was worried about it being on BET. That was the thing that scared me. I was like, BET?
Right.
The BET, they usually don't do programming like that. So I'm like, how's BET going to do a New Edition story? But it turned out pretty
Great
good.
job.
Thank you.
Great
You.
job.
They, you know what? They let us just go. They let us, we were like, you gotta take the chances because everybody's watching this. And this could be, a game-changing piece of content.
How soon after that did Bobby Brown sign on for his story?
So Bobby signed on before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always the plan to come back with Bobby
Okay, so maybe that was part of his deal. Like,
Yeah.
you do this New Edition and then we'll do yours.
and you're coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as New Edition hit, then we went into script for Bobby, and then we shot it, and it comes out on the 4th.
How much
pressure
of it is
that?
based off the book? Because Bobby's book is amazing. I keep telling everybody that every little step is an amazing book.
Right.
How much of it is based off the book?
I would say probably 50-60% of the book.
Really?
And then the rest as, what we really tried to do was get inside of Bobby's head.
Mm-hmm.
We really tried to tell you the why.
Not a safe space.
Not a safe place. But, he really did expose, who he is and why he did a lot of things. Like we all remember the Crack is Whack interview, the Diane Sawyer interview.
100%.
We have a scene in the movie that shows you what happened between the two of them after everybody left. And that is really the crux of this film. It's like we all saw the interview and him sitting there denying drugs and her saying crack is whack. But the conversation that they had after is incredible. And that's the story that we were trying to tell.
I went to Black Girls Rock, and they had already sent us the screener for the Bobby Brown story.
Right.
So, as soon as I got it, I was at home watching it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I just
Thank
want
you.
to say Woody does a fantastic job.
Salute to Woody, South Carolina's own.
Yeah, as Bobby
Yes.
Brown. It's amazing. And that one scene is in there with Janet Jackson that you asked him about, Charlamagne. You asked Bobby, is that scene with him and Janet going to be in that movie?
Right.
And that scene is in there. And I was like, wow.
Janet gonna be mad.
That's what I did think
Did y'all
that
have
because
to
Janet
clear-
got honored at Black
Did you have
Girls
to clear
Rock.
this with the Jacksons?
No, I mean, it's in Bobby's book. It's been out there for a while. Like now it's in that space of public record, and it was Bobby's point of view to tell. Bobby, that story was very important for Bob to tell.
You realize that Janet is going to get slandered on social media. If it's the way it's written in the book and what she said to Bobby to cause Bobby to do what he did,
It's,
woo!
we're going to have to see.
She'll never do another BET.
Like, got her already.
Was there pressure for you to? 'Cause, I mean, you almost have to have. It has to be as good as, or better than the New Edition story.
It's
Yes.
definitely up there with the New Edition.
Really?
It's excellent.
Story, I hate to say it, and I love New Edition. Bobby's story is better because when you're making a film or a TV show, it's got everything: drugs, tragedy, like.
You didn't say nothing positive. You just said drugs and
I mean, that's
tragedy.
hey man. That's
But he's
a
so
good story.
talented too
I mean,
at the same
yeah.
The
time.
goodness,
Incredibly
the good
talented.
parts. Geez.
I mean, it is like it's a darker movie than New Edition. I mean, it's a lot of death. It's a lot. You do get the fun. You get the fun, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You saw a little Ghostbusters fun.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of that stuff, but you really get inside that Bobby's been going through a lot of pain in his life. And Bobby's always been somebody that we've always rooted for. And I think now people will just, if they love Bobby, now they're going to fall in love with Bobby.
That's what I asked him when he was here. I said, "Is there ever a time when you're not grieving?"
man, I mean, that dude cries at the drop of a hat. So, you know, I think he still carries, like, for instance, he was in Atlanta, him and Alicia were in Atlanta during the whole process. But there were certain things that he just didn't come to. He didn't come to any of the Bobby Christina stuff. He didn't come to when he was in jail. Anything that, you know, he still carries with him, any of the funerals, the death stuff, he was nowhere to be found.
Wow. Did he give y'all any input on that at least?
Yeah, just how he felt. He would talk about how he felt. Bobby Christina was something that was really hard for him to talk about, but he wouldn't want to get into the details of like this happened, this happened, this happened. It was just more about how he felt. You know, the interesting thing about the Bobby Christina relationship is there was a long time that Bobby was not with her. He didn't get a chance to be a father. Then when she was in the coma, Bobby became in charge of her. So now he finally gets to be a father, but she's not there, but she's still alive. And so that was hard for him because he felt like he missed all this opportunity to be a father for her. And now he gets his chance and she's really not there. And that was something that he wanted us to really convey.
What is the movie end? And New Edition ends, you know, the BET Awards. How does the Bobby Brown movie end?
The Bobby Brown, it ends where he is now, you know, with his family, day by day, trying to keep his life on track. You know, we take it all the way past Bobby Christina and then getting into his new family and his new life and him coming to the realization that he survived so much that it must have a purpose.
Now, you used to be an executive at BET, right?
No.
You never was an executive at BET?
I haven't had a job since Foot Locker.
Damn. Really? So from Foot Locker, you knew you just wanted to have your own production company? And
So I was now I was on the radio. I was out in L.A. And then I got fired.
Quiet Storm?
No, before Kevin James.
Okay.
I did Ruthless Radio with Eazy-E, and I did Overnights, and then I got fired for my mouth and talking shit. And
first of all, why would a radio company give Eazy-E a radio show? Have you on the air with Eazy-E and then fire you for something you said? That makes no sense.
We have Ruthless Radio. It was like it was incredible. It was playing West Coast music. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. That was when, like, we'd be on the air and like Daz and Corrupt would call and be like, "We shooting everybody up at the studio tonight," and then I would be like, "Oh fuck, I'm from DC. What the fuck is going on? This is not my life." And then Eazy would be like, they bullshit, and then he'd just play Dre Day. And then put a cash register effect under it.
Oh my gosh.
Because he still got paid for that
because he was
record.
getting paid for the record.
Wow.
I was like, you are out of your fucking mind.
What did you get fired for saying?
So this is what had happened. So at that time, me and Faison Love, Big Worm, and Tucker used to come on my show. It was
Chris Tucker,
yes, like midnight to 6 or 2 to 6. We were doing whatever, and so we used to do like Al Collins and OJ in jail, and like Faison was Al Collins and Chris was OJ.
Oh boy,
this sounds amazing. Continue, please.
Oh boy,
and they're just talking about all what they're doing and who was driving the Bronco, what they were listening to, all that kind of crazy shit. And we weren't playing any music. We were just basically just doing a talk show till 4 a.m, and we didn't give a fuck. And the program director was like, "You're out of control. You got to play music."
This was FM radio?
This is 92.3 The Beat.
That's crazy.
And they weren't, I think it was Harold Austin was the program director, and they just weren't having it. They just were not having it at all.
Didn't play music.
we were just, or if we played music, I mean, look, it was such a crazy time. It was like, of course we had the playlist, but we were like, fuck it, we're going to play Prince all night. Because it was just, I felt like it was like our own little empire.
You deserve to get fired.
Yeah. So they were like, you got to go.
Yeah.
So,
you needed a podcast back then.
Yeah.
So I was unemployed, and I was at Robert Townsend's house, like down on my last unemployment check. And Townsend was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't want to go back to D.C. I can't get a job in radio." And he's like, "Have you ever thought about being a writer?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that means." He's like, "All right, here's a script." He had this show called Parenthood. He's like, "Put some jokes in it and bring it to me." So then I went home, put a bunch of jokes in it, and then Robert, basically, long story short, walked me into Warner Brothers and was like, "We're going to hire him as a writer on the show."
Wow.
And that's really how like that part of my life started.
Wow.
Wow.
Shout out to Robert
So you knew
Townsend.
Eazy-E. So when you saw Straight Outta Compton, you had a connection to it.
Yeah, and I was like, they really captured who E was. They really captured not just the mannerisms, but just how he thought. You know, how smart he really was, and how much he tried to stay connected to the community.
How
What are the stories-
How does a kid from DC hook up with Eazy-E?
You look like an older Kenny Burns, though, now that I think about it. Kenny, your child or something on the low?
You stupid.
I'm glad you made Kenny older.
It's a little bit.
Yeah,
It's a little bit.
Basically, Eazy walked into the beat, I guess, and just had this idea to do a radio show.
How'd you get to LA from DC? You went to college out there?
It's called a plane.
Nah, I flunked out of community college. So no,
You flunked out of community college.
I was on the radio. I was on PGC in DC.
In DC,
And I was in LA. Friends of mine had a record, and we were all out to be in the video, like that type of shit. And I had a connection at the beat, and I walked in. I had an air check tape. Do y'all even do air checks anymore? No.
They have them.
I mean, people still do.
They still
But
do,
yeah.
But it was like, and I had an air check tape, and I went to the program director, and I was like, "You should hire me." I had like a 1 minute tape, like 3 breaks. That was it,
And he hired you.
and he hired me.
Wow, would that work today?
No.
No,
No,
this
no,
is
no.
'93.
What other stories you think need to be told that haven't been told yet?
Music biopics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, you know, there's a lot of them. Like at some point, somebody should really tell the death row story. I think it's a really interesting story. I think Rick James has got an incredible story.
I want to see a Salt and Pepper story.
Salt and Pepper would be a great story. It's really about, you know, people really being willing to tell the truth. You know, you can't just make it about, you know, some
The fluff.
records and some fluff and all that stuff. You got to really be willing to, you know, embarrass yourself.
Right.
You know, let yourself look a little crazy.
I always feel like that's hard for people. Like when people write their own autobiographies, there's a lot of things that you don't want to tell about yourself, or you tell it in a way that's very flattering. you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I do watch movies and I know people are involved in it, and I'm like,
That's why I didn't like Dre's character in Straight Outta Compton.
right.
It's like too superhero-ish. It's like, come on, Dre. Like, come on. We know you went through something.
Right.
You know?
It's hard for people. I mean, look, that was an interesting thing with Bobby and Alicia, because when Bobby would say like, "Oh, it didn't happen that way," Alicia would be like, "No, it's exactly how it happened." And then, you know, that truth would be there, and he'd be like, "All right, fuck it." There's a funny scene, not funny. There was a funny moment when we were filming. You know, there's a scene where Bobby wrecks Whitney's cars, Porsche, and all this shit, and he shows up, and Woody's in all white. And Bobby goes, "I would never dress like that. I never wore all white. And when I crashed that car, I was wearing some other shit. That shit looks stupid."
Then they had the picture.
And then we Googled the picture. And
Ah.
he was like,
all white.
"All right, fuck it. I was wearing white. But not those shoes. Not those shoes."
Does Bobby even remember a lot from that time?
That's the thing. He doesn't. You know, it's like, so we're like, Bobby, Google's right there. Man.
Yeah, Bobby,
What are you gonna do? You are the most Googled R&B.
Yeah.
So he would have, you know, he would just have to deal with that stuff.
What's your hopes for the Bobby Brown movie? Because New Edition says they feel like they dropped the ball after the movie. Them personally.
Right, because of the tour,
tour.
and
Yeah.
all the business that could have came
Album,
after.
yeah.
You know, for us, it was always about to humanize Bob, to just really understand what he's been through, and just, you know, look, you don't know. Hopefully, it does as well or better than New Edition, but really, it's like the culture to understand that one, Bobby's not a bad guy. He wasn't the reason for you know, all the drama with Whitney. I mean, those were two people coming together that were just, you'll see in the film, they just enabled each other. They loved each other so much, but they enabled each other to go down the wrong road
Right.
sometimes. But it wasn't all Bob that was driving that. It wasn't all Whitney either, but, you know, it wasn't just that he was just this mindless dude that just wanted to do coke and that type of shit all
When
day.
he was here, he said he also wanted his kids to see it too, to kind of explain a lot of things
Right.
to them about when he was younger and having babies
Mhm.
and why things happened the way that they did. It kind of was a way to show them.
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think, hey, look, Bobby that's something that he is really focused on now, is being a great father. His son is actually in the last scene of the movie.
Yep.
So look, it was we learned a lot of shit. Like, you know, we had a reading and Bobby's doing crack and we had a pipe. Mm-hmm. And Bob was like, I ain't never smoked crack out of a pipe. It was out of a blunt. Now, you can show me smoking crack, but don't you put that shit in a pipe because I was never there.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't even know they were levels. I thought it was just
I guess
crack
a pipe
crack.
makes you feel like you hit rock bottom. When you,
I seen
that
a
pipe.
beer can.
Right. No,
Yeah.
there was a blunt for him. So, you know, we learned a lot of shit.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, we look forward to watching this.
It's going to be an event, September 4th, right?
Yeah, September 4th and 5th.
I only know that because I'm actually leaving to go to Johannesburg on the 5th, and I was like, oh man, I got to be home on the 4th to watch it. But how am I going to see it?
I got
too.
one last question though. It's just like, why can't BET do programming like this all the time?
It's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I think they are. I think you got a lot of great content coming. I think I don't know. They've like Lena Waithe has got some great content coming for BET.
Plus, y'all gotta watch it and support it.
Yeah,
too. That's how
That's
BET
the
will
other
get
thing.
bigger budgets.
They do watch it. New Edition movie ratings are through the
Well,
roof.
I'm not talking
but
about
then the
just that.
other
We're talking about
stuff, it's
other
like-
programming.
It's like for instance, like Black Girls Rock, which comes September 9th. Everybody loves Black Girls Rock. You got to make sure that everybody watches Black
Right.
Girls Rock. It's one thing to just, you know, like shit on Instagram. You got to actually watch the content and support it.
Yeah.
But BET does have a lot of great stuff coming, and we're excited for it.
Yeah, I just feel like whenever BET does high level stuff like that, like whether it's the New Edition movie or Real Husbands or Being Mary Jane, it's a thing.
Right. Absolutely. No, and they got more. Look, you know, Lena's flipping Boomerang. That's gonna be fucking amazing. We're doing American Soul, which is the story of Don Cornelius as a drama. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming. We're getting like really deep into his life and how he created Soul Train and made that work, and it's gonna be a very deep dramatic series.
Wow.
So
We'll look forward to seeing all of that.
yes,
Jesse
Thank you.
Collins.
And we
Jesse
appreciate you for
Collins.
joining us.
Thank
Jesse
you.
Collins, it's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.